Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, anybody in between. Welcome back to another Kenny RH collecting video. Right, today, every now and again I like to do something a little bit different. Today is one such. I normally do suggestions by other people, but today I'm going to talk about collecting steelbooks. Or rather some tips and tricks for people who may be thinking of getting into steelbooks, or maybe already into steelbooks, and you might even learn a bit from what I'm going to say. But it came about from a few comments I exchanged with a new viewer called Sophie, who said that she was, thinking of getting into steelbooks, and she told me what kind of subjects she was interested in, what kind of films she was into, and I managed to give her a little bit of advice during our comments backwards and forwards, and it finished by her saying, well, maybe it would be a good idea to do a tips and tricks video for people just getting into it, like me, and then maybe finish it off with a top 10 of videos under £10, top 10 selection. So I thought about it, and well, it seems like a good idea, because steelbooks have always been amongst the most popular of the ones that I do, and so yeah, I thought, well, why not? It'll be something a little bit different. So as far as collecting steelbooks goes, there's one thing. If anybody asks me for advice, there's one thing I always tell them straight off the bat, and that is about rarity, because it's for me it's the number one important thing especially when you're getting into it. Now, if you go on eBay, you'll see hundreds and hundreds of listings for steelbooks, and a lot of them will have rare with asterisks all around, in capitals, rare in capitals, asterisks all around, OOP, which is out of print, and then, say 20 quid. Well, first of all, there is no such thing as a rare steelbook, as far as I'm concerned, especially a PAL UK one, because rare is something that, I've said this, in the past, but it's worth repeating here. Rare is something that you see on eBay maybe once, maximum twice a year. Now, to the best of my knowledge, there aren't that many, if any, PAL UK steelbooks that are that rare. I might be wrong. Obviously I haven't seen every listing for every steelbook that ever came out, but for me, for a steelbook to be rare, it would have to A, have a very, very, very limited print run, and B, to be unobtainable from most of the usual sources. So, I would say when you're looking at listings on eBay and you see that, don't be gulled by that, because it's tempting when you first get into it. If you see something marked rare that's only, say, 20 quid, you think, oh, well, maybe I could start off my collection with something really nice that's only worth 20 quid. But, very often you'll be paying through the nose for it. You can probably pick up a 20 quid rare item for somewhere else for a tenner. So, don't be gulled by this rare business, because 99.99% of the time it'll be just eyewash. So yeah, that's the first thing you need to remember. Now, the second, and equally as important, I suppose, is what you're going to collect. Whether you're going to go the used route, which is the route that I've always taken. When I say used, I mean obviously I buy new as well, but what I mean when I say the route I've taken, I'm not bothered. If I see a nice Steelbook and it's used and it's a decent price, it doesn't bother me that it's used. As long as it's fairly complete and not a complete mess. But yeah, you need to decide. The reason I say this is because if you go the new route, you have a little bit of a problem now. It's something that I've sort of run into, in as much as a lot of the stuff on Zavvi and HMV, places like this, ones that you can pre-order, are all 4K. Now, if you're like me and you haven't got a 4K telly or a 4K player, it's not a viable proposition, because whereas most pre-order Steelbooks brand new were around about the 15 quid mark, now it's not unusual for them to be 30 quid, in some instances even more than that. So, I've actually stopped pre-ordering a lot of Steelbooks now, and I still go for the Marvel DC ones, because that's an area that I'm well into. But outside of those, for most Steelbooks that are around about that 30 quid mark. I mean, I just bought Aquaman pre-order, just came the other day, which I'll show you in a video that's coming along shortly. I bought that for 25. That was sort of like 4K Ultra HD. And because as I collect DC and Marvel Universe film Steelbooks, I decided to get it. But as I say, it's tough now price-wise if you're going to pick that new route. I mean, some people come into collecting, whether it be games or movies, and they decide that they're going to go the route of sealed. Keep everything sealed. Now, it's something that's never really entered into my thinking. I mean, I must admit, it is nice to see a shelf full of pristine mint sealed Steelbooks. Yeah, it's I can understand why people might want to do it, but for me it's kind of counterproductive, in as much as you can't watch the film unless you buy 2 copies, which unless you're a millionaire, is a bit on the tricky side. So yeah, I mean, you have to decide that very quickly which route you want to take. Now, once you've decided, I mean, going back to rarity, if you decide that you're not going to stick to just PAL UK like I do, it's a whole minefield out there, because, for instance, in Germany, they get far more Steelbooks and better looking Steelbooks than we do, by and large. The Japanese, the Asian market, is absolutely awash with collector's editions, and some of them are absolutely gorgeous. And I mean, if you decide you want to go that route, then you need to have a few bob behind you. Believe me. I mean, I would love to be able to collect some of this Asian stuff. It's absolutely amazing, but no, I don't have the resources for that. So, yeah, I mean, by and large, I would imagine most people coming into it would probably go the same route as me, and that's PAL UK, used if necessary, new if the price is right. So, okay, where do we go to get them? There's still quite a few, although a lot of the online retailers that used to be about are not around anymore, like play.com, places like this. There's still plenty of places you can go to pick up Steelbooks. I mean, the obvious place being eBay. Now, if you go to eBay, let's start off with them. The best way, if you're just coming into it and you decide to go the used route, the best way to do it, I find, I mean, a lot of people might know this already, but it's worth mentioning. Obviously, you'll put in a search for movie Steelbooks, Blu-ray movie Steelbooks, and at the top there's a little tab where you can change it to highest to lowest price. Just go for lowest to highest, and then it'll list up or the lower price ones, whether it be buy it now or an ordinary auction. But I'll give you a little tip here. A lot of dealers now, if it's a buy it now, they've also got a little box underneath make an offer. Now that's a very useful thing for collectors, because I mean there are, if you make an offer, there are some dealers on eBay that won't take anything sort of like less than 50 pence below their asking price. You know, they'll be asking a tenner, and if you make an offer that's anything less than £9.50, they'll turn it down. But on the flip side of that, there are other dealers, and I've had plenty of experience with them, where something for a tenner, you don't want to annoy them by offering, say, a fiver, because they'll just ignore it and say, oh, you know, I can't be bothered. But if you go around about, I normally, if something's a tenner, I normally go in around about the 7. Then I've had dealers on eBay accept the 7, which is great because you save £3. But most of the time, like haggling at a market or something, you'll meet somewhere in the middle, and you know, if you save 30 bob, well, it's 30 bob saved, and it's 30 bob towards the next one. So yeah, that's a tool that you should definitely make use of, and don't be afraid to, you know, go down a few quid, because you can always, they'll always bump it up a bit for you if necessary. I mean, I've bought some great stuff on eBay and saved, you know, 2 or 3 quid, which you can't complain about. So yeah, that's a couple of tips I can give you for eBay. Now, Zavvi, that's another popular one because they do a lot of exclusives, of course. Zavvi are okay. I mean, I must admit that they've got some weird business practices, and I'm not too keen on using them, but that I have to, because they're one of the, they do have some bargains up from time to time. I'll show you a couple later on, but they do tend, their prices tend to fluctuate a little bit. Like they'll put them back up to a tenner, then they'll bring them down to say 8 quid, and then they'll send them back up to a tenner again, which is something I fail to understand in business. You know, if you bring it down, you bring it down. Why send it back up again? But yeah, I mean, Zavvi do have some sales on from time to time, so it's always worth having a look through their stuff. Amazon, that's another place. If you go to Amazon, you need to look primarily into the private sellers. You know, there's when you look at a page on Amazon, it'll have the Amazon price. Then down below in small print, it'll have so many used with a price, so many new at a price, and they're the private sellers. And very often you get a better deal off them. You have to watch the postage, mind. You know, you might think you're getting a better deal, but Amazon, you know, might sell. I don't know whether you have to spend. I think you have to spend 20 quid to get free postage on Blu-ray films, and on books it's slightly different. But so you know, you might see something. Oh, I like that for 20 quid, and it'll be free postage. And then you go to a seller. Oh, it's only 18 on there, but they'll be charging 2.87, I think it is, postage. So you know, you've got to be a bit canny and watch that sort of thing. But yeah, the Amazon private sellers are one thing to look out for. There's another place that I use, well, I have used quite a bit, called zoom.co.uk, I think it is, and they're quite reasonable with their prices. So I would say by and large that they're the main places I would use, apart from Kex. Now Kex is a slightly different kettle of fish, because you've got a high street presence there. And I mean, if you're lucky like me and you've got 4 or 5 shops within easy busing distance, you can actually go and have a look, because the trouble with Kex is I've seen some Steelbooks in some pretty horrible states being sold there. So if you go to their online arm, which is webuy.com, you find that you can buy Steelbooks on there for the same price as the vanilla Blu-ray. The only trouble is you don't know what sort of condition it's going to be when it gets to you. So it's always better to try and go and have a look around various caxes. If you live somewhere like me where you've got 3 sort of like major cities within an hour's busing distance, then you know there's plenty of opportunity to go and look. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice already. Yeah, I mean, cax do tend to be a bit pricey with some of the stuff, but with a lot of the stuff, they just price them up the same price as the ordinary, which is great. The only trouble with going out to cax shops now is they tend to keep a lot of their Blu-rays behind the counter because people obviously nick them, and you can't actually see if they're sideways on. It's very difficult to see the spine, what's on them, because you're standing like a few feet away. Unless you've got good eyes, and some of the spines are not very good anyway with the way they show the title. So yeah, that's another little problem with cax. But yeah, I mean, cax is well worth considering. I mean, when you get it, if you don't like it, if it's in bad condition, you can always send it back. But I know that's a hassle. Yeah, that's the main places I would say to go and look for new and used. Now, the only other thing you've got to be mindful of is storage. Now, a lot of people have actually sent comments to me on a lot of my vids saying, why do you just have all your videos sort of like out in the open? You know, you should buy these covers for them. Well, you know, when you've got 350 odd Steelbooks, to cover all that lot would cost me a pretty penny. So I've decided not to go that route. But as long as you keep them away from extremes of temperature, sun, obviously. You don't want a room that gets really, really cold in the winter and really, really hot in the summer, because that will affect them over time. I mean, I've seen mainly gaming Steelbooks. You know, I've seen many of the earlier ones in shops, and they've had little sort of like flecks of rusty on them, and that's what happens if you don't keep them right. I mean, I've got a room upstairs that gets no sun or anything at all. It's where I keep all my books and comics. That would be the ideal place to store them, but I just haven't got room. But, you know, don't be too precious about the condition. I mean, if I buy a Steelbook used, and it's one I particularly want and it's cheap and it's got a couple of maybe minor surface scratches. I mean, I'm not a condition Nazi about this sort of thing. You know, it's just a little bit of wear and tear, which doesn't bother me at all. But I mean, I've seen them in cax and places game when they used to do them, where somebody sort of looks as if they're taking a hammer to them, actually sort of like hammered them to bits, and they still put them out on the shelf, which is rather surprising to me. But if you, what I will say on storage is if you buy them new and they come sealed, and it's a film that you've already seen, or it's a film you don't want to watch for a while, by all means leave them sealed. This is what I do. You know, if it's a film that I've been to the pictures to see, and it'll be sort of like a few months before I actually get around to viewing, I just leave them in however they come sealed, and that obviously protects them for a while until you get around to watching them. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with leaving them sealed. I mean, by all means, leave them sealed forever. If it's a film that you're not going to watch again, you just like the Steelbook. Yeah, I mean, as I say, I wouldn't worry about all these scaremongers who'll tell you that your Steelbooks will fall to bits or go rusty over time. You know, I've had some of mine for many, many, many years, and they're still in the condition I bought them. In fact, I'll show you one here in a minute. So yeah, that I mean, I can't really think of any more tips and tricks I can give you with regard to Steelbooks, other than, you know, use your common sense when when buying anything, try and price compare if you buy new. Have a look on eBay at ones that have, you can, there's a facility there where you can look at ones that have just recently sold, and see what sort of prices have gone for, and so you can get an average kind of what they're worth from that. That's something that I often use. But apart from that, just use a bit of common sense. Now, as far as I was talking to you earlier about people going on about this and that being rare. Yes, there are certain Steelbooks that I would say are scarce. There are certain Steelbooks that I would say possibly you could call them almost rare, but they would have to be sealed. Those are the ones that command the highest prices. Steelbooks that you don't see around very often that are still sealed. They're the ones that are kind of getting into that realm of rare, but I still wouldn't call them rare because you see them around more often than you should. Of what I would regard as a rare item. I'll give you a couple of examples. That one, the first Thor, is quite scarce now. Unfortunately, that one's missing its cover. But having said that, I bought this from Kex a few years back, and it was about £8. And back when I bought it, this was going for more like 80 used online, so I wasn't too bothered about it not having the cover. So there's an example of something that's quite scarce and getting on for rare if you can find a sealed copy of it, if you want a sealed copy of it. The reason that these are quite scarce is, I didn't know until recently, but apparently the American market didn't get Steelbooks of the earlier films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which makes sense because it's the earlier ones like Thor and the two Iron Men that I'm going to show you shortly that are the scarcest. This was actually another occasion that I went into Kex. I thought I bought the Thor one on its own, but I went in these next couple I'm going to show you. I actually went into Kex and somebody had just sold a set of Marvel Cinematic Universe Steelbooks, all in mint. This one's absolutely mint condition. It's still got its original packaging, and I bought that for £6. Now, that's closer to around about 60 online now for a used copy. But as I say, a lot of the Americans would have bought these up. So that's another example of, if you see that in Kex, jump on it. But I think Kex have wised up now, and they tend to sell stuff like that for premium prices. And then the Iron Man 2, that was another one that's quite scarce. I got that for £6 as well. I don't think that's quite as dear as the Iron Man, but it's still a £50 Steelbook used. Obviously it would cost you 3 figures if it was sealed. Now that one's still sealed. That's the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know if that had a low print run or what, but this shot up in price. It's sold out at Zavvi, whose exclusive it is, and it shot up in price straight away. And even now, it hovers around the £50 in sealed. You can get it a little bit cheaper in used, but not much. And then another one worth showing you is this one is actually just a reprint of the one that I'm talking about. This is the Zavvi reprint of the first Star Trek, new batch of Star Trek films. But if you can find this is just a 1-disc version. If you can find the 3-disc version, that I believe was Play.com, who are now defunct, that one is quite scarce, and very scarce in sealed condition. So that's just an example of a couple that I would classify as scarce rather than rare. Right, now, as I said at the start of the video, it was suggested that I do a top 10 of have used on new videos that are coming under a tenner. So, what I was saying to you about condition now, this is, I think I'm mentioning this one to you because I believe this was the very first Steelbook that came out in this country. Might be wrong, but I think I've read somewhere that this was the very first one. Now, I've had this for donkey's years, but as you can see, there's no mark on it, and I just keep it in the shelves with the rest of them, Nothing's happened to it. It hasn't got any blemishes or any hint of any rust on it. So, yeah. So that's why I don't worry too much about condition. Yeah, that's a recommendation I can give you because it's the first, if not the first. It's definitely one of the first three. You can pick that up for a couple of quid in Kex. I've seen it. So yeah, that's worth it. I mean, not the greatest of films. I didn't enjoy it overly at the cinema, but it's a nice Steelbook actually. I'm a big fan of Johnny Depp, so I don't mind having that in my collection at all. That's another one that's a half decent film, very cheap. Again, I've seen that in Kex for about £3. I certainly wouldn't mind paying that. I don't know if it came like that or whether it came that Sweeney Todd one came like that. It didn't have any. It had all the stuff printed on it. It didn't have any sort of like wraparound. I think I've got a feeling this might be missing something, either a wraparound or the cardboard cover that it slots into. It's like a little thing that it slots into at the bottom there. But yeah, I mean that one's worth picking up for £3. Now this one surprised me when I saw it recently online. This is a play.com, as I say, they're now defunct. Terminator Salvation, the director's cut. Now, when I bought this, I thought I was getting a major bargain. I mean, I think I paid £4 for that in the now sadly defunct Granger Games, which had a lot of shops in the north where I live. When I bought that for £4, I thought, blood, that's a bargain. Because, they were knocking these out for, 20, 25 quid. But I've recently seen one around about the £4 mark. So, by all means, if you like the Terminator films, it's not my favourite Terminator film by any means, but at £4, I would certainly pick it up. Now, this is one of the set of 7 films. Now, I actually bought the box set of these, but now you can get them individually on Zavvi, and I think around about the £7 mark. All the 7 have got these lovely black and white covers by Alex Ross, the comic artist, who some of you might be familiar with. I mean, I love his work. So, yeah, I mean, you can pick up, I think, all the 7 in the series for around about £7 each. I think the box set's still available. I can't remember how much that is, but if you're only interested in, say, Frankenstein or the Dracula one or the Mummy or the Wolfman one, individually, as I say, £7. You can't complain, especially if they've got that nice artwork. This one is still sealed because I've seen the film and really enjoyed it. London Has Fallen. It's kind of a protect the president kind of film, a bit like White House Down. Some of you might be familiar with it, because Gerard Butler plays the security guy in this, and he gets into all sorts of trouble trying to protect the president, I think it is. Oh no, sorry, that was Olympus Has Fallen. That's the first one. This is the second one, London Has Fallen. But both of them are great films. Plenty of action. It's one of these dumb sort of action flicks. And this I think you can pick up on Zavvi, certainly for less than a tenner. I can't remember quite how much, whether it's £7 or £8, but it's a great film. One of my recommendations. Now this is the Snow White and the Huntsman. This featured in my top 10 top 10 all-time favourite Steelbooks. This It's within my top 3, I think, because it's a lovely steelbook. I mean, it's beautiful. Really nice, the back cover. This one came out of a box set. That's why it hasn't got any of the wraparound stuff on it. But that's how it came. But you can buy it individually with the wraparound on, and you can pick that one up for certainly less than a tenner. I've seen it all around. Have a look on eBay. This one is another Zavvi special, Green Hornet. This is a nice steelbook. The film's quite amusing as well. It's one of these sort of semi-superhero, quasi-superhero films that's turned into a bit of a comedy, but I don't normally like that sort of stuff, but this one's quite amusing. And it's, well, I'm sure I've seen this around for about £1.50. So, yeah, I mean, I could well recommend that to anybody because it's a nice steelbook, B, it's not a bad film. For £1.50, you couldn't go wrong. Even if it's a bit higher than that, £3.50, I might have got the wrong price. Now, this is one of my favourite films of all time. Salt Angelina Jolie. It's another action sort of spy pick, but it's a great film, love it. And these Project Pop Art films, I actively collect these. There's quite a few in the series, and whether I like the film or not, I go for these because normally they're quite reasonably priced. I think most of the ones I've got have been less than a tenner. Now this one, this was limited to 500 copies. It came up on Zavvi, and I saw it. I was straight in there and pre-ordered it. I thought this might last 2 seconds. A good film with 500 limited editions. But amazingly, it stayed up on Zavvi until, a couple of weeks ago. We're still there a couple of weeks ago at something ridiculous like £8 or something. So I really don't follow that one. It just goes to prove that you can't always judge the scarcity of a film by its print run. Because, I mean, to all intents and purposes, that should have sold out within days. And yet it was up for months. But it's a great film. And although it's sold out at Zavvi now, I did see one up sealed on eBay recently for a tenner. So I would, tenner or less, I'm doing these recommendations for, so that would certainly come into the reckoning. Now this one I actually just picked up last week. I'll be showing it again on my pickups for March. Lucy. Now this sold out at Zavvi when it, see the eye there? Really weird how to catch the light on it, the eye. You see that? Yeah, anyway, not messing about. There it is again. Yeah, it sold out at Zavvi when it first came out, and I didn't buy it. So I missed it. I probably would have bought it because it's quite a decent film. Scarlett Johansson, so it's just after a box of monkeys, but I found this in my local Kex last week for £8. I thought, I'm having that. I think it was about £15 when it came out. As I say, sold out pre-order. So yeah, that's one that I added, and if you can find one in Zavvi for £8, I would certainly pick it up. Now I've got 4 here, but it only acts as one really because it's a series. But it's another one of these Project Pop Arts, and this is a series of the Resident Evil films. And I just love these, the artwork on these. I think that's the 4 that they brought out. For some reason, they've never done the Steelbook for the first film, which is rather odd. Maybe it was by a different publishing company or different distributors. I don't know, but anyway. But that's the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th films, and these are all on eBay. At least they were on Zavvi. They were doing them, I think, 2 for 15. So you get all 4 of them for £30, which, if you like them as I do, ain't a bad price at all. And then normally when I do one of these top 10 things, I always do a special mention for something that didn't make the top 10. And Yeah, that's the Hobbit. That's the 3D version. It's got I think it's only about a £5 currently, most places. And yeah, it's got a load. I mean, this is missing the cardboard sleeve that it slots into or wraps around, whatever, with all the information about the film. But for a £5, I wasn't bothered because it's got a whack of extras. There's about 4, maybe 5 discs in there. And a £5, which is what I paid for it, it's certainly worth it. Okay, so that's the video. Thanks again to Sophie for suggesting it. This one's for you, and within a week or so I'll have up the video for my pickups for March, and it's quite a bit of good stuff in there. So if you want to join me in about a week's time, you'll be very welcome. Just finally mention that we're creeping towards the 1,000 sub mark now. I think we're around about 960 odd. So I'm racking my brains trying to think of something special to do when we reach that magic 1,000. So I'll let you know when that one's coming off. And in the meantime, thank you very much for joining me again, and have a nice day. Bye-bye now.